I'm making this video because I haven't uploaded in 2 months, and I don't have any other videos planned, and these here files that you see on screen I have put onto my Twitter, but I figured that no one's going to go down my whole Twitter to find these here, so I might as well make a video that has all of them in it. These are videos these are documents that I have put together to see certain people's level of competition. This file is called Cherry Pickers, but not everyone in here is bad. Golovkin and Calzaghe, they didn't always fight the best competition in title fights, but I still think they're good. The other ones, especially the one at the very end, I really don't like. Yuri Bakagov was a good one as well. You'll see. The biggest shock out of all these ones was Narvaez. Just wow, it's bad. Why do I still have this on screen? Oh well. Okay, so we'll start off going through Artur Grigorian's. This one really shocked me at first because this is the only one where not a single opponent that he beat was rated at the time. 4 were rated at some point in their careers. Like the first one, Antonio Rivera, he was rated at featherweight. As some of these, I don't remember who was rated in a higher weight later on in their career. I've seen people say that Osman Warrior say he deserves credit for the record of lightweight defenses. I mean, look at this. He fought Antonio Rivera, unrated opponent. Well, unrated at the time, sorry. Who was rated a champion, top 3 rated in his career to win the title. Then he got 2 victories, one over Gene Reed, one over Marty Jakubowski, I hope I'm saying that right. And he fought Raul Horacio Balbi and won, who was a rated champion but not rated at the time. Then he went a long run of, how many is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 in a row of unrated opponents. Then he fought Antonio Pitalua, I hope I'm saying that right. Just simple rated, not a champion, not top 3 rated. Then he fought another 3 unrated opponents. Then rated champion Stefan Usov. And then one more against Max Zegan before losing to the only opponent that was rated at the time that he fought, Astlino Freitas. He has only 4 wins over rated opponents and 18 title fight wins, and just 1 win over someone that was top 3 rated. 3 wins over champions, obvious 0 over Hall of Famers, as previously mentioned, no wins over anyone that was rated at the time he fought them. This may be the worst out of all these long reigning champions. Next one is Brian Mitchell. So he won the title from Alfredo Lane, not that good of a world champion. Alfredo Lane retired, 15 wins, 12 losses. And then he proceeded to go on 11 straight fights without fighting one that was rated at the time. I've forgotten to highlight this row. Just gonna do that now. Okay. Ah, that was strange. Okay. So after Lane, he fought 2 unrated opponents in a row. Then he fought former world champion Daniel Londas. Then another 4 fights against unrated opponents. Another, well, a win over a rated opponent, but I found that from 1987 to 88, the ring didn't have rankings at super featherweight for some strange reason. Then another unrated opponent. Then 2 rated opponents in a row that were both unrated at the time. In a time there was rated ratings. And then the last 2 title fights were up against by far his best opponent, Tony Lopez, rated champion, top 3 rated fighter, who is ranked number 2 both times that they fought. So Ryan Mitchell got 5 wins over rated opponents in 14 title fights. 1 over a top 3 rated opponent, 3 over champions, none over Hall of Famers, only 2 wins over people that were rated at the time, the first and last person he fought in the world title fight, and only 1 was rated in the top 3 at the time he fought them. Next is Calzaghe, and this may be the best out of all of them. So I've included Hopkins and Roy Jones at the end because they were the other 2 rated opponents he fought outside of title fights, so might as well include them. So he won the title from rated champion and top 3 rated fighter Chris Eubanks Sr., who was surprisingly unrated at the time. Then a fight against Branko Sobot, unrated opponent. Then Juan Carlos Jimenez, a rated opponent, but not at the time. Split decision over Robin Reed, rated top 3 and former champion. He was rated 6 at the time. Another 3 fights against unrated opponents. Then he fought Richie Woodhall, rated champion top 3, who was ranked number 8 at the time. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents. Then he beat Charles Brewer, rated champion top 3 and number 5 at the time. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents. Then he fought Byron Mitchell, rated champion top 3, number 5 at the time. Then another 3 opponents that were unrated. Then Evans Ashira, who was rated but not at the time. Then he beat Jeff Lacey. Jeff Lacey, rated champion top 3 and top 3 rated at the time, to unify with the IBF. Then he beat Sakio Pika, rated champion top 3 but unrated at the time. And then he beat Peter Manfredo, rated opponent but ranked 10 at the time. Then he beat Miguel Kessler, rated champion top 3, who was number 1 at the time, so that was the best person he could have fought at the time. Then he moved up to light heavy to fight Bernard Hopkins for the ring title, rated champion, Hall of Famer and top 3. That's by far the best win on here. And then he beat shot Roy Jones Jr., rated champion top 3 but obviously unrated at the time. So I've added a few stats in the title run because I include the other two fights that weren't world title fights. He got 13 wins over top 10 rated opponents in 24 fights here. He got 10 wins over top 3 rated opponents, 10 wins over champions, 1 over Hall of Famer, 8 wins over opponents top 10 rated at the time in 22 title fights. That's not that great. He got wins over 3 opponents rated at the time that were in the top 3. He got 11 wins over rated opponents in 22 title fights, so exactly half. 8 wins over people that were top 3 rated in his title run. 7 wins over top 10 rated opponents that were rated at the time in his title run, and 2 wins over top 3 rated opponents rated at the time in his title run. That's not the best, but I wrote Calzaghe as a bit of a cherry picker up here because I don't think he's a bad fighter, but this could have been better. And he really stepped it up here at the end. And now on to someone I'll link a funny video to in the description. Chris John. This is one of the worst ones. This was not a title fight. I'm a bit confused why I didn't write that there. Then Chris John was given the title, but this is the only other opponent he fought outside of a title fight, so might as well have included it. So he beat a rated champion that was unrated at the time outside of his title run. Then he beat Osamu Sato, a rated champion who was unrated at the time for his first defense. He got a technical draw with Jose Rojas, an unrated opponent. Then he beat Derek Gainer, a rated champion but unrated at the time. Then win over unrated opponent Tommy Brown. Then by far his best win over Juan Manuel Marquez, rated champion, Hall of Famer, top 3 rated, and number 1 at the time. More of that, please. Then he had 4 fights against unrated opponents in a row. But then he had 3 fights against rated opponents. Hiroyuki Inoki, rated fighter in the top 4. Then 2 fights with Rocky Juarez, rated fighter in the top 3. Unrated both times they fought, surprisingly. And this isn't a mistake. Unanimous draw, rare as hell. Then he had another 5 fights against unrated opponents before fighting a technical draw to Satoshi Hosono, a rated fighter, unrated at the time. Then he finally lost his title against Simpei Vatyaka, a rated champion who was unrated at the time, to finally end this terrible run. So he beat 6 fighters that were top 10 rated at the time. 18 title fight. Well, he's 15 1-3 in world title fights, and only 6 of those 15 wins are against rated opponents. That's pretty bad. Only 2 of those opponents were top 3 rated at the time. 4 world champions. 1 was a Hall of Famer. 2, just 2 of those 15 wins in title fights were against opponents rated at the time, and only 1 was over a top 3 rated opponent rated at the time, Juan Manuel Marquez. On to Golovkin. This is another one I've listed as a bit of a cherry picker because he's really stepped it up here at the end. He made his first defense up against Nilson Julio Tapia, unrated opponent. Then he beat Kasim Utma, rated champion top 3 but unrated at the time. Then 2 fights against unrated opponents. Then a win over... Okay, I'm going to butcher this. Kresgors Proxa. I'm so sorry, I've butchered the hell out of that. Our rated opponent ranked in the top 4 at the time. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents, then a win over rated top 3 fighter, but ranked number 6 at the time, Matthew Macklin. Then a win over rated fighter Curtis Stevens, who was unrated at the time. Then a win over unrated Adama Osumanu. Then 3 fights in a row against rated opponents Daniel Gill, rated champion top 3, right in the top 3 at the time as well. Then Marco Antonio Rubio, rated fighter in the top 8. Then Martin Murray, rated fighter, who was ranked number 6 at the time. Then a win over unrated Willie Monroe Jr. Then he beat David Lemieux, rated champion at the time, who was surprisingly unrated at the time, but he was rated at the end of the year. Then he beat Dominic Wade, an unrated opponent. Then he fought Kell Brook, rated champion top 3, who was unrated in the weight class. Then he beat Danny Jacobs, which is his best win to me, rated champion top 3, who was ranked number 2 at the time. Then he I believe he beat him, by the way, that's how I scored it, but official results are official results. Rated champion top 3, rated Canelo Alvarez, who was the ring champion at the time. Then he beat rated top 3 fighter Vanes Martiosane, who was unrated at the time. Then he lost to Canelo. Then, well, everyone knows he beat Serhii Derevyanchenko, who was ranked number 7 at the time, to get the IBF title. So he has 12 wins over rated opponents in 20 title fight victories. That's not that bad. It's over half, actually. 6 wins over top 3 rated opponents, 5 wins over champions, no wins over Hall of Famers, 7 wins over opponents that were top 10 rated at the time, and 2 wins over rated top 3 rated opponents at the time. That could have been a bit better. And he's really done well recently with it, so, and he's still going, so he could improve this. Here's one of my most hated, Darius Mikulchevsky. So he beat Leonzer Barber, rated champion, ranked in the top 5 at the time for the title. Then he beat Nestor Giovanni, champion but not rated, for the cruiserweight title. Then he had 6 fights in a row against unrated opponents before beating Graziano Rogagiani, rated champion, who was unrated at the time. Another fight against a rated opponent, and then he got by far his best win against rated champion, Hall of Famer, and top 3 rated Virgil Hill, who was number 1 at the time. Good win, unified the IBF and WBO with the WBO, then vacated both of them. Just why? Then he had 4 fights against unrated opponents in a row before beating Drake Fadzi. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Rated fighter, but ranked just barely at number 10 at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent. Then he beat rated champion top 3 Montel Griffin, ranked number 7 at the time. Bit of a controversial stoppage. Then he had another fight with Graziano Rogagiani, rated champion. This time was rated at the time in number 5. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents opponents before he beat rated opponent Richard Hall, who was unrated at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent, then he fought Richard Hall again, who was again unrated. Then he beat Derek Harmon, rated but unrated at the time. And then he finally lost the title up against Julio Cesar Gonzalez, rated champion top 3, rated number 7 at the time. Then he came back and lost to Teatso, rated champion top 3, rated number 7 at the time. So Mikuchevsky got 9 wins over top 10 rated opponents in 25 title fight wins. That's pretty bad. He had 2 wins over opponents that were rated top 3 at the time. That is atrocious. In 25 title fights. He got 6 wins over champions. He did get a win over a Hall of Famer, Virgil Hill. Then he had 5 wins over opponents top 10 rated at the time, and 1 win over an opponent top 3 rated at the time. These are really bad stats for someone that has 25 title fight wins. Okay, this is by far the longest one on here, and it is the most disappointing by far. So, Omar Andres Narvaez, he fought and beat Adonis Rivas, rated champion for the WBO flyweight title, who was unrated at the time. He beat Luis Alberto Lazarate, rated champion at the time. Well, unrated at the time, sorry. Then he had, another 8 fights against unrated opponents in a row before he beat Brahim Aslam, rated champion, ranked number 5 at the time, and I think that's his best win on this whole thing. Another fight against an unrated opponent, then he beat Carlos Tamara, rated champion, but unrated at the time. Another 3 unrated opponents in a row, then he beat Omar Soto, rated opponent, but not at the time. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents, then he beat Cesar Seda, rated opponent, but unrated at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent, then he lost to Nonito Donaire when he went up for a bantamweight title, rated champion top 3, ranked number 5 at the time. Another 3 fights against unrated opponents, then he fought Felipe or Rukuta, rated opponent but not at the time. Another 3 wins against unrated opponents, then he beat Felipe or Rukuta, rated opponent, ranked number 9 at the time for his 11th defense. Then he got destroyed by Inoue, rated champion top 3, who surprisingly was unrated at the time. Then he later, in a title fight, he fought Zulani Tete, and for some reason I have wrote UD12 here instead of here. Let me see, I'm not sure on Zulani Tete's things. Was Tete ranked in the top 3? I'm not sure. I'll check that later. It's not a win anyway, so it doesn't matter. So he got 7 wins over top 10 rated opponents in 28 title fight wins. Not a single win over a top 3 rated opponent. 4 wins over champions. 0 wins over Hall of Famers. Only 2. Just 2 of those 28 fighters were ranked in the top 10 at the time. One of them just barely. And none were top 3 rated at the time. This is very, very, very bad. Yes, whatever. Okay, then on to Mark and Intangible's favourite, Sven Okke. Didn't fight the worst competition, but controversial decisions really make you hate him. So he beat Charles Brewer, rated champion top 3, ranked number 3 at the time. Then he beat 2 unrated opponents in a row before he fought Thomas Tate, rated opponent, ranked number 7 at the time. Then he beat Glenn Johnson, rated champion, top 3 but unrated at the time. Another 2 fights against unrated opponents. Then he beat Charles Brewer again, rated champion, top 3, ranked number 5 at the time. Then he beat Silvio Branco, rated champion, unrated at the time. Then he had 2 fights against unrated opponents, James Crawford and Ali Enebiat. Why the hell am I reading them out? It doesn't matter. Then he beat rated opponent James Butler, who was ranked number 10 at the time. And he beat rated champion, top 3, Anthony Mundine, who was unrated at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent. Then he fought Thomas Tate, rated opponent in the top 6 at the time. Then he fought 2 unrated opponents in a row. Then he beat Byron Mitchell, rated champion, top 3, number 5 at the time, to finally unify the WBA. Then he fought David Stayer. Is that a Stary? I'm not sure how to say that, I'm sorry. Unrated opponent. Then he beat Mads Larson, rated opponent in the top 7 at the time. Then he beat Robin Reed, rated champion, top 3, unrated at the time in... Fuck, that referee was bloody terrible. Then he beat Armand Kranjic, rated champion, top 3, unrated at the time. So Sven Oka got 12 wins over top 10 rated opponents, 7 wins over top 3 rated opponents, 8 wins over champions, no wins over Hall of Famers. 7 of the 22 people he beat in world title fights were rated at the time, and just 1, Charles Brewer, right at the start, were top 3 rated at the time he fought them. Okay, now this one is a bit interesting. So Yuri Arbakakov beat Muang Chai Kitty Kasim, rated champion, top 3, ranked number 1 at the time, to win the WBC flyweight title. Then he fought unrated opponent Yoon Yu Jin. Then he beat Muang Chai Kitty Kasim, rated champion, top 3, ranked number 7 at the time. And he beat 2 unrated opponents in a row. Then he beat Hugo Rafael Soto, rated champion, top 3, but unrated at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent. Then he beat Chachai Sasako, rated champion, top 3, unrated at the time. Then he had another 2 fights against unrated opponents. Then he lost the title to Chachai Sasako, rated champion, top 3. So he got 4 wins over top 10 rated opponents, 4 wins over top 3 rated opponents, 4 wins over champions. This not the majority of his title fights were against rated opponents. When he was fighting them, they were rated champions that were ranked in the top 3 at some point in their career. He got no wins over Hall of Famers, and 2 of his 10 wins were against opponents rated at the time, and 1 was against opponent ranked in the top 3 at the time. So this one isn't that bad, because when he did fight the good ones, they were pretty good ones. So I'm a bit on the fence with Yuri Arbakakov. Okay, last one, Zsolt Erdei. I need a second here. Okay, so Zsolt Erdei beat Juan Carlos Jimenez, rated opponent outside of his title run, who was unrated at the time. And he beat Julio Cesar Gonzalez, rated champion, top 3, ranked number 2 at the time, for the WBO light heavyweight title. Then he beat Hugo Hernan. Have I mistyped that? I don't think I have. Hugo Hernan Garay, I don't know how to say these things. Rated champion, unrated at the time. Fight against an unrated opponent next. Then he beat Hugo Hernan Garay, rated champion, unrated at the time. Then he beat Mehdi Sa. And I can't say that one at all. Rated opponent, unrated at the time. Another fight against an unrated opponent after that. Then he beat rated opponent Thomas Ulrich. Then he had 5 fights in a row against unrated opponents before going up to cruiserweight to fight Giacobbe Frangomini, rated champion, ranked number 9 at the time for the WBC cruiserweight title, and that's one win I have to give Eddie credit for, because he was 178 pounds, something like that, and Frangomini was 190 something. So good job, Eddie. But we need more of that. Then after he retired and came back, he fought Byron Mitchell, rated champion top 3, who was unrated at the time. So Eddie beat 8 opponents that were top 10 rated, 2 that were top 3 rated, 5 that were world champions, none that were Hall of Famers. He had 2 wins over opponents that were top 10 rated at the time in 13 world title fights, and 1 over an opponent that was top 3 rated at the time. It should be said that this isn't the majority of his title fights, because there was 1 before his run and 1 after, which means 6 of his 13 title fights were against rated opponents. And I'm just going to explain, I hate Eddie because people give this man credit and say this man is underrated when this man fought trash. Just trash. And then there's people defending him saying, oh, he should have retired undefeated because he didn't really lose to Grachev. For someone that gets controversial decisions like this here and this here, if we're going by that logic, then he should have losses. They're just inconsistent as hell. By the way, I don't care how you scored Grachev versus Eddie. This man deserved to get robbed. He did not deserve to retire with that O. Anyway, we're done. Have a good one. I'll see you.